The question of whether or not the Muslim Brotherhood should be a terrorist organization, I think, is a pretty easy answer. But not a lot of folks are asking that or talking about that. I brought it up with Congressman Randy Fine out of Florida a couple of days ago. And talking about Florida, our next guest is now a Floridian, former New Yorker, incredibly popular with nearly 2 million followers on Twitter. Siggy Flicker loves us, so do I. It's the great Laura Loomer making her debut on Sid and Friends in the Morning. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Big fan. I'm excited to be on your show.
And we're really excited to have you. I was actually very happy to hear that you were in the building at Madison Square Garden. You know what's funny about that, Laura? Everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. And then there were like a couple of people, I mean Republicans, people like Howie Kurtz on Fox News, who came on the air and killed me. Forget about Rachel Maddow. She killed me, and some others on MSNBC. He killed me. Why would Trump put that guy up on stage? And then people saying Trump hates him, blah, blah, blah. By the way, since then, I've been appointed to one of Trump's boards. He sees me at Mar-a-Lago. He couldn't be nicer. So here, most people thought it went the way you did, but even Republicans were bitching way back when.
Well, it's okay. You're in good company. They bitch about me, too. So they had hit pieces out this week saying that the White House was sick of me. But then, I ended up having my own private meeting at the White House. So once again, the fake news media strikes. But yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. And it's fabulous that President Trump just restricted travel from 19 countries, including many countries in the Middle East and Africa. And one of the things that I've been very focused on, Sid, is trying to encourage the Trump administration to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. I'm up on Capitol Hill right now, and I've been having meetings with lawmakers. And I think that we're now going to see, in the aftermath of this Muslim Brotherhood terrorist attack by an Islamic terrorist who came from Egypt via Kuwait in Colorado, more of a bipartisan push to have the Muslim Brotherhood designated. This was an initial promise of the first Trump administration. However, we never saw the completion of the designation as we were promised in the first Trump administration. But it seems like in the aftermath of this attack, President Trump, as he always has been, is extremely committed to not only cracking down on immigration from a lot of these terror-tied Muslim countries, but also the State Department and DHS working to revoke more visas of terror-tied students, and including going after the family members of terrorists in that very strong statement released by Marco Rubio.
Laura, I would add CARE to that list as well, CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'll say this. I know that you've been critical of Trump. I know how much you love him. And I love him, too. I adore President Trump. But I've been critical. In fact, he was on this show less than a month ago, and I said to him, right on the air, I started dictating policy, Laura. I said, listen, President Trump, I think you need to inflict a little pain on Iran. Enough with these Steve Witkoff meetings in beautiful countries. Drop one bomb, or let Bibi drop one bomb on one nuclear facility. Then we'll sit down. Until he laughed, he said, I'll take it under suggestion. But I was being somewhat critical. You have, too, as much as you love him. So tell me, why do you think he's been so slow not to designate organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations?
Well, look, I fully support President Trump. I was openly critical of the Qatar plane situation. And I think I probably should have been a bit more reserved in my comments, because I should have had more of a private conversation with President Trump about it. Right. Because I am as high profile as I am, and because of the access that I've had, right, with the administration, my comments, which were mild, in my opinion, were weaponized by the mainstream media to launch an attack. And so it was never my intention for the comments to be misconstrued and created into an attack, because I fully support President Trump and his foreign policy initiatives and his America First agenda. That being said, I do think that we need to have more advisors advising President Trump who are more well-versed with Islam, the threat of Islam and Western civilization, and the threat of a lot of these groups. I would comment on CARE, but I'm actually not allowed to comment on CARE because I sued them several years ago. And the judge who ordered the raid on Mar-a-Lago, Bruce Reinhart, has ordered me to pay CARE their attorney's fees after I sued them for lobbying Twitter to ban me. And so, believe it or not, every single month I have to send CARE a check.
Oh, my
It's pretty
God.
outrageous,
Oh,
but
my God.
I'm also not allowed to talk about them. I have a gag order preventing me from speaking about them. So this is a problem. I feel like my First Amendment rights are being violated, but it's not about me. It's about keeping America safe. And I do believe that President Trump, I don't want to speak for the president, but I do know that conversations are being had right now by lawmakers. I spoke with Randy Fine. I actually had dinner with Congressman Fine the other evening. I spoke with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and I know that from my conversations with Jared Moskowitz, who's a Democrat, that there is a coalition building, a bipartisan coalition of lawmakers who are going to take this issue to the Trump administration to have conversations about getting them to designate the Muslim Brotherhood. Because that's the quickest way to shut down the Palestinian network in America. The Palestinian movement, Hamas, really is the militarized branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's the same entity. Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, essentially the same thing.
Hey, there are people too, Laura, that would say, talking about essentially the same thing, Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas. There are some that can't stand Abbas, and they would like to see the Palestinian Authority as one of those groups too.
Well, let's be honest, right? He's very old. He's going to die soon. And so what's going to happen, right? It's prime for a Hamas takeover. And so now's the time to crush Hamas before they're able to inflict even more harm and before they're able to gain more political power. And the quickest way, in my opinion, to shut them down, at least in North America, is defunding the Muslim Brotherhood by designating them. The Palestinian movement is completely funded by Muslim Brotherhood organizations that are listed as 501c3 charities here in America. We already know from the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial, which was our nation's largest terrorism trial, took place in Texas, that all of these groups were found to be supporting Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. Why are we subsidizing Islamic terror in America by allowing Islamic charities to classify themselves as charities and get tax deductions? Right? When you look at the pillars of Islam, one of the pillars is zakat, okay? And if you have any understanding of zakat, which is their, charitable obligation, 1/8 of all zakat is required to go towards funding jihad. So think about that, right? If every single Islamic charity has to abide by the pillars of Islam and they have to give 1/8 of all zakat charity to jihad, how much money is coming from the United States of America to funding the global war, the global terror movement, the global jihad movement through Islamic charities that are freely operating thanks to the IRS, thanks to the United States government? This is a massive problem. And so for everybody listening right now, this isn't a Jewish issue, okay? Doesn't matter if you're Jewish, doesn't matter if you're Christian. If you care about the future of Western civilization, if you do not want to see America fall to an Islamic caliphate, and you don't want to see a Muslim takeover in this country, look, you're about to have a Muslim mayor in New York City.
No. Slow down. We're not. No. He's not going to win. I don't say we're about to have a Muslim mayor. He is in second place for the Democrats, which is scary enough, and I don't think he's going to win. He may. I don't think he's going to win.
It's shocking. It's shocking that he's even able to be in second place with the views that he has. I mean, the other day it said he was in first place. I saw a poll that said that he was beating Cuomo. So maybe he's second, maybe he's at first. But said that a lot of people do not come out in primaries to vote. A lot of people don't. So this isn't like an election with Trump at the top of the ticket. And so it's up to everybody to make sure that people get out and vote against
Mamdani.
jihadi takeover.
Right,
But
let me get to that because he hasn't won yet, okay? But there are others that have. I mean, I played a clip of Ilhan Omar moments ago when I welcomed to the program. She's won, and she's won more than once. Rashida Tlaib, the same thing. The latest person to endorse Mamdani is AOC. She's also a jihad, basically a super anti-Semite.
Right, and then she has the audacity to say, anti-Semitism is so bad. If anti-Semitism is so bad, why are you endorsing a jihadi who once created legislation to shut down businesses in New York if they supported Israel?
Right. So
people need to look at his record.
Right.
They need to take a look at his record.
So the question becomes, again, he hasn't won yet, but for the people that are in power, all these Congress people that are jihadis, how do we get these people out?
You get them out by designating the Muslim Brotherhood, because they have all fundraised with, attended fundraisers, and taken donations from groups that were supposed to be designated as Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood entities during the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial. But who gave them a pass? Barack Hussein Obama and Eric Holder. This is why everybody needs to get online. They need to contact the White House, and they need to urge their lawmakers and call their senators and tell them to tell Pam Bondi to reopen the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial, and tell your lawmakers to, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, to urge their lawmakers to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Eliminating jihad from America should be a bipartisan issue. This isn't a Republican issue. It shouldn't be a Democrat issue. Yes, the Democrat Party has been taken over by jihadis and Islamofascists, okay? But there are still some Democrats who are willing to designate the Muslim Brotherhood, including Jared Moskowitz. And we need to be willing to put our differences aside with them as it relates to some of these other ideological issues. Yes, some of them are not fans of Trump. We need to put some of that aside for the sake of protecting our national security.
So on the way out here, Laura, you're down in Florida. I lived in Boca for 16 years, and you get like three old people right during their lunch, and they show up in front of Boca Town Center Mall with signs. You know, you're not getting what we're getting here in New York City. Thousands of pro-rape, pro-murder, pro-torture, pro-Hamas animals running up and down the streets. But we get it here, and we get it quite a bit.
No, we have it. We have it in Florida, too.
Where?
We do. I mean, it's... They show up in Boca. They show up in Palm Beach. I was documenting this a lot throughout the 2024 election, and there was a big controversy because Ron DeSantis had signed a law into effect that said that it was illegal to protest in the state of Florida wearing a mask. And yet you had all these jihadis showing up, and they were wearing keffiyehs over their face.
Wow.
And everybody was wondering, when are they going to be shut down? It's illegal. It's illegal in the state of Florida to protest with a mask on or a facial covering.
We need to do that here, too. I mean, the mayor wants that, but he's powerless and he's a moron, and the governor couldn't care less. But my point was going to be, you know, it's everywhere, and now we had this awful incident in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago. The attack in Boulder, Colorado, just a couple of days ago. It's dangerous. You know, you're a Jewish person walking down the street. You've got a bullseye. So my question to you, Laura Loomer, is how dangerous is it?
Well, it's incredibly dangerous. And being Jewish myself, you know, I take it into account, and people need to get armed. I think that every single Jew who can.
Do you have a gun? Do you have a gun? Do you have a gun, Laura?
No, because I do not have a gun. And you know why I don't have a gun? Because I was targeted by James Comey and illegally red flagged after I confronted him at his book signing several years ago and called him out for Crossfire Hurricane. And as a form of retaliation, he put me in this secret NICS database. And so I'm in the process of working with the new FBI leadership to get my gun rights restored, because I have literally had and members of Congress literally wrote a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland and the former FBI director on my behalf when this happened. So I know what it's like to be disarmed and be a target of these jihadists, because
you have been. But I got to think I got to think that Cash Patel
by the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah. I have been targeted by the Iranians. I have been targeted by these Islamic radicals, and it's scary.
I got to think that Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, though, will make it all good for you. Yes.
I hope. I mean, look, it's very difficult to get time with these people, but yes, I'm in the process right now of. I'm sure they will, right? I'm sure they will, but you know, they have other things on their plate right now, so I'm in the process of getting that resolved, and I'm sure that they will help me restore it, because it's obviously unethical. You can't have a secret database where they're red flagging people or putting people on travel bans and shutting people down. So absolutely.
Let me ask you this, one more. The Muslim Brotherhood, I agree with you. I mentioned CARE. I know you can't talk about them. I even threw in the Palestinian Authority. There are plenty of these that need to be designated as terrorist organizations. But seriously, the Muslim Brotherhood, I should say, is the most serious of them all. Is there a time frame for you, Laura, where you believe this needs to get done?
I mean, it should have happened in the first Trump administration, because, look, it's not just the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is funding all the chaos via Qatar. This is why I was extremely critical of the situation with Qatar, because Qatar is the biggest financier of the Muslim Brotherhood, and also Black Lives Matter and Antifa. All the violence that you're seeing on college campuses, whether it's like Muslim Students Association, Students for Justice in Palestine, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, It's all funding from Qatar. This is why President Trump recently signed an executive order requiring universities to disclose their funding sources that came from foreigners. Who are the biggest supporters of foreign funding here at American universities? Saudi Arabia and Qatar. But it's the Qatar, even in Saudi Arabia, they've designated the Muslim Brotherhood. There's a list. It's just, I'm going to read this list to you. It's unbelievable. Okay. You have Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, Russia, Austria, Kazakhstan, Libya, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Jordan, the most recent country, all have designated and banned the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. If some of the most influential Muslim countries in the world have designated the Muslim Brotherhood, don't you think it's time for the United States of America to follow suit? Don't you think a Muslim can identify another radical Muslim? I think so. I think we should listen to these other Muslim countries who have designated them because, look, it's the ideology of Islam that this really boils down to. And if you have Muslims telling you we have designated these people because they are so violent and because they are so chaotic even in our own countries, why do you think Mohammed Salman wanted to not go back to Egypt and he overstayed his visa? Because they cracked down on the Muslim Brotherhood. They don't want those people there. Why do you think none of the Muslim countries want to accept the Palestinians? Because the Palestinian movement is the Hamas movement. The Hamas movement is the Muslim Brotherhood movement. It's the same thing. Nobody wants these people because they are literally advocates for and supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, which is banned in multiple Muslim nations. So it's time for people to get aggressive about this. And, I'm hoping that President Trump's advisors will give him accurate information as it relates to the Muslim Brotherhood, because it's not just Muslim activity that we need to shut down as it relates to jihadist movement. It's also the communist movement here in America, which is funded by the Muslim Brotherhood. I can't reiterate that enough, Sid.
Yep. No, you're 100% right. That is a heck of a debut, Laura Loomer. I mean, we had all this anticipation, all this excitement, Laura Loomer coming on the show. And to use a baseball term, Laura, you hit a grand slam. So congratulations. We hope to get you back on this show often. We're with you 1,000% on everything you're saying. Keep up the great work. You're a voice for millions and a voice for us. Thank you, Laura Loomer.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You got it. There's Laura Loomer right there, folks. Again, you can follow her on Twitter, Instagram, all her social media sites. Very easy to find her at Laura Loomer.